Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're continuing our all-out war campaign, and we are all the way up to Chapter 6 of the Safety Behind Bars expansion, and this is going to be Misplaced Loyalty. So the description here says, with tensions running high following the death of Thomas, the prisoners, aided by Patricia, raid the armory and attempt a coup to remove Rick's group from the prison, but someone left the doors to A block open. And that's where we pick this up. So here we're using their prison terrain again. And you can see over there we've got Rick, Lori, and Carl right there at the prison gates. And then we come around here and we've got Dexter, Patricia, and Andrew. And then inside is Thomas. And then back around here inside the cafeteria, we've got Glenn, Andrea, Dale, and Tyrese. So here I'm going to go over the rest of our board, tell you where the supplies and the walker setup is going to be. If you want to skip through this part and jump straight ahead to the game, use the timestamps down below in the description, and you can do that. So for this mission, we're going to have 3 supply tokens on the board, and we have 8 walkers. All of our walkers are either lined up outside of the fence zone or around here on this side. And anytime walkers come onto the board, they're going to come from those areas as well. There are 3 supply tokens located inside of the armory, which is this room right here. There's one in the office that you can see right there, it's a silver suitcase, and then one outside in the tower. So the victory conditions for this are pretty simple. We have 2 teams, the first of which are the good guys. So we have Rick's team led by him with 7 in total against Derek's team who has 4. To win the game, you have to kill more than half of the other player's team. So for Rick to win, he has to kill 3 members of the prisoners, and for Derek to win, he has to kill 4 members of Rick's team. All right, so something different that we're going to do today that I'm really excited to try out is we're going to use these new rules that Mantic released today, which is no one stands alone, and we're going to use these to control the second player, which will be Derek's team. And looking over these pretty quickly, it's going to be a lot harder than I originally thought it was going to be. So some of the key call outs from this are the second player is not going to be affected by nerve. So no matter what it gets up to, high nerve, doesn't matter. Low level characters are still not going to be affected by it. We're going to start the second player with 50% bump to their starting point value. So for this mission, they were going to be allotted 60 points of equipment. Now they're going to get 90 points of equipment. And then the character type comes really into play here. So bruisers are always going to go towards the nearest survivor and try to attack them. Marksmen are always going to take shots. Runners are always going to run towards supplies. It's really going to make that character type important now. Not only that, but the character type also affects what equipment you're going to give to someone. So it says that runners should always be given some sort of armor. Bruisers get melee weapons, marksmen get rifles. Not only do they get rifles, but by default, all of their rifles are given silencers, so they can shoot all game and only create noise. So it's really going to make this game a lot harder for Rick and his team than I thought it was going to be, and I'm excited to try it. So let's put these away and let's get started. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start turn 1, and the threat for this game is going to start on 1. And again, before we start out, I'd like to thank all of the new subscribers here. So we have just passed 200, and the total grows every day. And I want to thank everyone for coming over and watching the videos, and invite everyone to be a subscriber and go down and enjoy all the content that we've been putting out here lately. So we're going to start out with Patricia, and if you skipped ahead to turn 1, we're going to be using the single player rules that Mantic has just released. Now Patricia is a marksman, and according to those rules, she has to take a shot at the closest survivor to her, which is going to be Lori. So Patricia is armed with an M4 carbine, which gives her an extra white in shooting, and she has a white as her base. So we're going to go ahead and roll that against Lori. All right, so Patricia is going to be rolling 2 white against Lori, who has a single red for defense. Now she's carrying a riot shield, but that doesn't do any good against an assault rifle. So we'll go ahead and roll the first shot. And that is multiple shots, so we'll take the second shot now. Alright, so after that round of shooting, Lori only takes 1 point of damage. So that brings her down to 3 wounds. And according to these single player rules, the rifle that Patricia is shooting with comes with a silencer by default. So she's only going to be generating noise. So we'll go ahead and move the closest walker towards her. So he comes forward and stumbles into the fence. And that will be all of Patricia's actions that we're going to take. Alright, time to come around to Tyrese. And we're going to get Tyrese to just make a straight 8-inch run out of the cafeteria and into the hallway here. Out to about right there. And if you've been watching these videos, you know that we've just entered a new area. So because we're indoors, we're going to have to spawn some walkers inside of there. So we're going to roll 1 red die and drop that many walkers into that new area. Alright, so no walkers join us in that area right there, and we'll come back around to the prisoners for their next activation. Alright here, and so for the prisoners, we're going to come around to Axel, who is going to start inside of this prison cell. Now, Axel's character type is a support character, and according to these single player rules, he wants to be paired up with someone. So we're going to get Axel to run out of the cell, down that hallway, as far as 8 inches will take him, and we'll spawn walkers along the way. Alright, and we get Axel just on the other side of that door right there. So what we'll do is spawn walkers for this long hallway right here. And then this other part of the room where we're in up here. So this will be for that long portion of the hallway. And for the office area that he's in right now. Alright, so we dropped the 1 walker there in the hallway. We put no one up there where he was because of a lucky dice roll. And we mark him as activated. And then we go back around to the good guys. Alright, this time around we'll take Dale, and we'll have him also make an 8-inch move out there just behind Tyrese. Like that. That's all for him. Back around to the prisoners. Alright, next up for the prisoners, we're going to take Andrew, and he is a runner, and runners have to move towards the closest supply token with a run action. So we're going to go ahead and move him 8 inches over here towards the supply token inside the tower. Alright, so Andrew makes an 8-inch dash over there. That's going to create noise and move the closest walker within 10 inches of him. So we go ahead and move that walker in contact with the fence as well. Alright, so now we're going to come over to Rick, and we're going to take Rick and move him 8 inches towards Andrew. Over to here. And again, go ahead and move the closest walker towards him. And we'll mark Rick as activated and come around here to our final prisoner. And we'll activate Dexter. Alright, and now we come back down to Dexter. Dexter is a bruiser, and bruisers are going to make a run action towards the closest enemy survivor, which in this case is Rick. So we're going to go ahead and move Dexter 8 inches towards Rick. So he moves out there, and now closest walker to him is going to start to shamble around that fence to try and get to Dexter, which is going to move that walker right up there behind Lori. Alright, and so we've activated all the prisoners. Now we just have Glenn and Andrea left over to activate. So we're going to go ahead, and both of them are actually just going to run out of here 8 inches to get up with Tyrese and Dale over there. Alright, so we go ahead and we move that whole group of prisoners, and they're all waiting right there in that hallway. And it looks like they're running into that corner, but you guys know from my other videos that that wall leads into this room where the stairs are, which will then take them out here and inevitably out through the front of the prison. So that's going to be all of our survivor actions. We'll come back around here to the front of the prison, and we'll go ahead and draw our first event card. All right, so first event card going to be drawn to chaos. So we're going to go +1 on threat tracker. So we are up to 2, and in all quiet. And all quiet, we're going to have red walkers enter play from each table edge. Alright, so we roll a 1 there, and we bring on 1 walker down here, the new guy in the orange jumpsuit there. And back around on this side, we have the new walker right here, also in the orange jumpsuit for the prison. That's our event card. We'll go ahead and go to the kill zones, which we should have checked prior to that. The only person going to be affected by that will be Lori, so we'll nudge this walker into contact with her. Actually, it's 2. the kill zone there also tripped the other walker. So Lori, with facing 2 walkers in combat, will up the threat by 1 to 3 because of melee. And we'll go ahead and roll for this. All right, so we're gonna get Lori to defend in combat, and she has a red as her base defense. And like I said earlier, she also has a riot shield, which when defending against walkers will give her an extra white. And because Carl is within her kill zone, she's also going to get an extra red. So she'll be rolling 2 red and 1 white against 3 purple for the 2 walkers. Alright, so Lori manages to successfully defend herself there. So we move both of those walkers back, and it's at this point in the video that I realized that I didn't even activate Lori and Carl. I was putting down all these fancy green activation markers, and after rolling that I realized I didn't move them, but that's okay. We'll come around to them in turn 2. So we'll up the threat by 1 because of solo play, and get ready to begin turn 2. Alright, we are ready to start turn 2, and the threat is up to 4. So we have just gone into low threat. We're going to start here with Lori because the good guys now have the initiative. So Lori's going to go ahead and make an 8-inch run move to get up here behind Dexter. So we move Lori back there, and that's going to cause the closest walker to move towards her. So we move another walker in contact with the fence. But that's going to keep Dexter from being able to activate this turn. Now back around to the prisoners. We're going to go over to Andrew, and again, he's a runner, so he has to move towards the objective counter. So we're going to sneak into contact with the tower, and then search the supply token on top of there. And inside of there, we're going to find some meds. So we'll go ahead and stick these inside of his pack. That'll be the end of his turn. And then while we're right here, we're just going to take Rick, and we're going to have Rick attempt to go ahead and lower the threat. So we're going to roll the blue die for him, because this is the Atlanta Camp Leader version of Rick. So he's going to use his Stay Calm Leader ability to reduce the threat by a blue die. So we'll drop the threat by 2, 3, and end up on 2. Alright, and then for Rick's second action, we have the tough decision of going over and trying to help out Lori against Dexter, who's probably going to destroy her, or do we move into contact with Andrew and try and take out the weakest link on that team? We're going to go ahead and move Rick into Andrew and hope that Lori can hold her own against Dexter. So Rick moves into contact with Andrew and blows a kiss goodbye over to Lori. Alright, back over to the prisoners. We have Patricia, and again, Patricia's the marksman. So we're going to shoot at the closest unengaged enemy survivor, which in this case is going to be Carl. Both Lori and Rick have run away. They've engaged in combat. Carl is left down here all by himself. So Patricia has a clear view of him. We're going to go ahead and take a shot at him. Alright, so Patricia again is rolling 2 white for her shoot and for the M4 carbine that she's carrying. And Carl has a single red in defense, and he gets no buffs because no one's within his kill zone anymore. So we'll go ahead and roll the first shot. And just like that, Patricia eliminates Carl. She gets 3 successes plus the headshot, which inflicts the extra wound. And she doesn't have to roll for ammo checks because we're going with these single player rules now. So that's insane. She takes him out with 1 shot, still has a full magazine, and that's going to be all of her actions for this round. But because she fired the gun, we're going to go ahead and generate some noise, and it's noise, not mayhem, because of the silencer that's on there by default. So what we're going to do is go ahead and move the closest walker within 10 inches of her, and he's already in contact with the fence, so now it's going to make a full shamble to try and get around the fence and to her. So we take this big guy here on the corner and move him 6 inches down the fence line. And then we're going to come around to this group of survivors that's clustered up here in the hallway, and we're going to take Tyrese at the front of the pack, run him a full 8 inches, and probably get down there close to that walker on the other side of this wall. So you can see Dale's fist over there on the left side of the screen, and then Tyrese runs through there, down the hallway, and in that doorway, which is going to make noise, and draw that closest walker over towards him. And we're not going to generate walkers inside of the room with the stairwell because we treat that as one long continuous hallway. And then for our last prisoner over here with Axel, we're going to take Axel and have him go through the doorway right in front of him, over there, and try and run out of the prison to meet up with everyone outside. And that 8 inches is going to get him right there at the front of the prison, so he's about ready to meet up with the rest of his team outside here. And then that leaves us with this group of 3 survivors back here. All we're gonna do with them, have them run down the hallway, get up with Tyrese, so we can all go out in force to try and take on the prisoners out there in the yard. And there's no point in moving everyone individually, so we just moved everyone at once, 8 inches, and now we've got this nice conga line about to go through this doorway here. We'll come back around to the front side of the prison. That's gonna be all of the actions this go around. There are no kill zones to check for. We've got 1 person in combat with the walker, and that's Tyrese. So our second event card is going to be The Walking Dead. So +2 to the threat. We're gonna go from 2 up to 4. So we're back in low threat now. We're gonna have double white walkers enter play and move towards the nearest survivor. All right, so we're gonna have 3 new walkers. So we have this walker in the orange jumpsuit, this walker in the orange jumpsuit, and this walker in the orange jumpsuit. And we're gonna go ahead and move them all towards the closest survivor, which in this case is going to be Rick, which is gonna bring them out to right about here. All right, we're gonna up the threat by 1 to 5 because of melee combat, and we're gonna get right into it with Dexter against Lori. All right, so Dexter is an absolute beast in melee combat. By default, Dexter has a red and a white as his base melee. And then he's also armed with a Gator Pro, which kind of looks like a foobar, if you're into that home improvement type thing, or a machete with a big hook on the back of it. Either way, it's gonna give him an additional 2 red dice in melee combat. And it has the sharp keyword. And then we gave Dexter the stab veteran skill for an extra 6 points, which allows him to reroll any melee dice. So we've got 3 red and 1 white that are rerollable against Lori, who's going to have 2 red as her defense. So this will be Dexter's attack. All right, so as it stands, that is potentially 6 wounds, maybe an extra one if we roll a 50-50 die because we have the sharp and we get to roll a badge. But I think I'm going to go ahead and re-roll that white one just to see if I can get a 2. All right, so Dexter rolls 6, and we'll go ahead now and roll for Lori's defense. So we have a red as the base and a red because of her riot shield. All right, so as expected, Dexter takes out Lori. Maybe Rick should have gone over and helped her out, but now we'll go over to Rick against Andrew and see if he can't get rid of him. All right, before we even roll for combat here, Andrew has the nimble special rule, which allows him to roll a 50-50 die, and on a badge, he's going to back out of combat and not even have to fight Rick. So let's see if he can slip away. And he does not. All right, so in this combat, we're gonna have Rick, who has a white as his base melee, using a normal hatchet, which gives him an extra white in combat, against Andrew, who is going to defend, and he rolls 2 red dice in defense. So the 2 white dice will be Rick, and the 2 red will be Andrew. All right, so Rick rolls 3 successes against Andrew's no successes, which is 3 wounds, plus the headshot for an extra wound, which would normally kill Andrew. However, he is wearing the Interceptor body armor, which is going to reduce any damage taken by a white die. So now we're going to go ahead and roll that to see how much damage his body armor is going to absorb. So we're going to have 4 wounds minus 2. All right, so Rick manages to inflict 2 wounds on Andrew, bringing him down to 2 wounds left. But Rick is in a bad place out here with all of the prisoners surrounding him. He's really going to need everyone else to get out of the prison and help him out. All right, so our last combat left is Tyrese against this single walker inside of this prison hallway here. And for Tyrese in combat, he is going to have 2 white as his base, and he's also carrying a claw hammer, which gives him an extra white. So we're going to have 3 white dice against a single purple for this walker. And Tyrese is easily able to get that walker out of the way with a headshot there. So now we have a clear shot to get out of the prison, hopefully go out there and eliminate some of these prisoners and help out Rick. Alright guys, we have upped the threat by 1 to 6, and we are ready to start turn 3. And if you skipped straight ahead to this one without watching turn 2, you really missed something good. Go back and watch that one. We're going to start out this turn with Patricia for the prisoners because they have initiative again. And Patricia is going to take a shot at Rick. So we're going to go ahead and roll for that. Alright, so this will be the first shot for Patricia. Again, she's rolling 2 white dice. And Rick in defense will roll a white dice of his own. Alright, so Rick is going to take 2 wounds after the first shot there, and she's now going to go back and take her second shot. And in defense, Rick will roll. Alright, so after all that shooting, Rick is going to go ahead and take 3 wounds in total, bringing him down to 3 wounds left. And because of the noise, again, we're going to be the closest walker to Patricia, so we have a new walker in contact with the fence again. Alright, and over here to Rick's team now. Rick has got to do something to try and stay alive. So we're going to get Rick to run around the guard shack right there, back into that corner. So Rick is going to go all the way back here into this corner, and we're going to move the closest walker to Rick 6 inches, which will bring that guy right up into Rick's face. And then with his second action, we're going to lower the threat again. So Rick will use his leader ability, and we will reduce the threat by 2. And bring it back down to 4. Alright, with the prisoners, next we're going to go over to Andrew. And Andrew has to try and collect all these supply tokens. So now he's going to go into the prison and try and grab this token off of the counter. So we're going to move him 8 inches up the steps and hopefully into the prison here. So Andrew comes around and runs past Axel back inside the prison to try and grab that supply token before the other team can get to it. Alright, back here with this whole group of people, we're going to take Tyrese and have him run out to try and go get a hold of Andrew as he comes into the prison. So he's going to make an 8-inch run move. And Tyrese is going to wind up being about an inch too short to make contact with Andrew this turn. Alright, now we're going to take Dexter, and Dexter has to move towards the closest enemy survivor, which in this case is Tyrese. And Dexter has enough range to make a run action and engage Tyrese. So that's what we're going to do here. He's going to move 8 inches right into that doorway in front of Andrew and engage Tyrese. And this is what we wind up having right here. So Andrew is not in that combat, but we do have Dexter and Tyrese. Back here just behind this group, we're now going to get Dale to make an 8-inch run up there behind Tyrese. And that gets him to right here. And Axel is our last prisoner to activate, so again, him being a support character, he wants to find a buddy to meet up with. So we're going to have him come down and partner up, for right now at least, with Patricia. So we're just going to bring him down into her kill zone through a sneak action. And we just bring him down a couple inches so we don't attract any walkers in, and he's just going to park right there and help to support her. Alright, and now back here for Andrea and Glenn. We're going to start out with Andrea and have her make an 8-inch run up here behind Dale. So stopping her right there. And then we're going to do the same thing and move Glenn 8 inches as well. Move from up here, and we are slowly making our way out there towards the prisoners. Alright, and that's going to be all of our survivor actions. For kill zones, we're going to go ahead and move this walker into contact with Rick. And that's going to take us to our next event card, which will be Pandemonium. So +1 to the threat, we're going to be on 5, and we're still in low threat, so we're going to roll a blue die and move that many eligible walkers in a direction of our choice. And then white walkers are going to enter play. Alright, so that card said each player, so the prisoners have initiative right now, so what we're going to do is roll blue for them. And they're going to move 2. And Rick's team will be moving 2 as well. Alright, so in an effort to box in Rick, the prisoners have decided to move 2 walkers from this side of the board closer into him, while Rick's team has taken 2 walkers and moved them closer to the entrance to the prison, over there near Axel and Patricia. And for the second part of the card, we are going to bring in this many new walkers. 2 more. Alright, so for our new walkers coming in, we're going to have Walker Ronnie and the punk rock walker both make an appearance, and they're going to come in on the yellow lines on the road right there. All right, so we're going to up the threat by 1 for the start of the melee combat phase here, and we're going to begin with Rick against a single walker back here in the corner. All right, so Rick is rolling 2 white against 1 purple for the walker. All right, and Rick manages to knock that walker back an inch and prone. All right, now over here we have the 2 heavy hitters going at each other. We're gonna have Tyrese against Dexter. All right, so again, Dexter will be rolling 1 white and 3 red, and he is able to re-roll any of these that he wishes. So we'll re-roll that blank there. All right, so Dexter manages to roll 5 successes. So Tyrese is going to attack back with 3 white dice. So Tyrese comes back with 3 successes, which means that Dexter can now go ahead and roll a black die, and on a badge, because his Gator Pro is sharp, he'll inflict an extra wound. And just to add extra insult to injury, Dexter has a special rule called the Muscle, which says that if he chooses to attack in combat and is on the winning side, he inflicts 1 extra point of damage. Okay, so stay with me as I explain how many wounds Dexter has inflicted here. So he won the roll 5 successes to 3 successes. So he scores 2 points of damage for that. He rolled a headshot, so that's an extra point there, up to 3. Then his weapon has the sharp keyword, which will give him an extra wound because we rolled the badge for 4 points of damage. And he has the special rule of the Muscle, which says that if he's on the winning side in melee, he inflicts an extra wound there for 5 total wounds off of that single combat, which is going to bring Tyrese all the way down to just 2 wounds remaining. All right, so after all that, we scoot Tyrese back an inch because he lost combat, and that is going to be the end of this turn. All right, turn 4, the threat is up to 7, and Rick's team has the initiative this go around. So here we're going to start out with Andrea, and Andrea is going to sneak around Glenn and come around to the back side of this counter to back here, and that's going to put Dexter right there in that doorway in her line of sight. Now Andrea's going to take a shot at him. So this is the prisoner sniper version of Andrea. So we'll go down to the dice tray and I'll tell you what she's going to be shooting with. All right, so Andrea has a blue as her base shoot value, and she's armed with a 9mm pistol, which is going to add another 2 red dice to that. And Dexter in defense has 1 white, so we're going to roll all these together and we'll see what we get. All right, so Andrea manages to inflict 3 wounds on Dexter, giving him 4 wounds left over. And because Andrea's shooting is going to cause mayhem, we're going to up the threat by 1 to 8. And there are no walkers within 10 inches of her, so we're not going to have anyone moving around. However, speaking of Dexter over here, we're going to come over to the prisoners, and he is going to rush into the building again to take on Tyrese, who is still the closest survivor to him. And we'll put that counter up there to indicate that Dexter has been activated. Staying inside over here for the next activation, we're going to go to Dale, who also has a handgun. For Dale's first action though, we're going to try to get him to reduce the threat. So here, just like a regular hold your nerve action, we're going to go and roll the 50-50 die, and on a badge we'll drop it by 1, and on a blank we'll stay at 8. Alright, so the threat's going to remain at 8. However, we are going to stay with Dale here, and for his second action, Dale is going to take a shot into the melee combat between Dexter and Tyrese. All right, and this is the grizzled leader version of Dale, and by base he has a red and a white for his shooting value, and then he's armed with a Smith & Wesson 9mm, which gives him an additional red in shooting there, and if he rolls any headshot, he's going to get to roll an extra white die. So what we're going to do first to build the suspense, we're going to roll for Dale's shooting. Then, because we're shooting in melee combat, we're going to roll the 50-50 die to see if he shoots Dexter or Tyrese. So this will be his shot first. And we get to add in that extra white. All right, so we got a lot of wounds waiting over here to inflict on someone. So On a badge, we are going to shoot Dexter, and on a blank, we are going to shoot Tyrese. Alright, so Dale scores 6 successes, and he successfully shoots Dexter. Now Dexter gets to roll his defense, which is a single white. So let's see what he gets here. Alright, and so what may be the big turning point in the game, Dale is able to take out Dexter with a great round of shooting. So because he rolled the headshot, Dexter does not come back as a walker. We'll now roll to see if Dale has run out of ammo. So 50-50 die. On a badge, Dale is good to keep shooting, and on a blank, his gun is out of ammo. Alright, so Dale is going to continue to shoot, and because of the mayhem again, we're going to raise the threat by 1, up to 9, and we are now in medium threat. Alright, and after a devastating loss, we come back over to the prisoners for their next turn. We're going to go to Patricia, and there are no survivors within her line of sight anymore, so she's going to move towards the closest one by a sneak action. So everyone is inside of the prison except for Rick, who ran way up around the corner and out of her sight. So we're just going to move her 4 inches towards the front of the prison entrance, out to here. And although Patricia has a low nerve, remember with these solo rules, that doesn't come into play for the AI controlled players. So we're just going to move her up there, and that's going to be all of her activations. Alright, so now we're going to come back over here to Tyrese. And at this point in the game, the threat has reached medium. And at this point in the game, a new rule kicks in which has trust issues, which reads, at low or all quiet, you can attack anyone that you want to. However, once it gets to medium or high, you can only attack other survivors if there are no walkers within 8 inches of you. So we're going to have Tyrese use his first action to try and lower the threat and get back down into low. Alright, so the threat's going to stay at 8. We're going to get Tyrese to now come over and engage Andrew. And that's going to be it for them. Alright, and now back at her with our last prisoner, who is Axel. Again, the support character just wants to stay with his buddy. So he's just going to come up here and get a little bit closer to Patricia. Just there onto the other side of her. Alright, Andrew is going to be blocked off by Tyrese. So we're going to come over here to Glenn. And Glenn is going to sneak over and then search this supply counter. And Glenn is going to find some horse pills. Alright, so we'll go ahead and put these into Glenn's pack. Alright, and that leaves us with Rick, who has run himself over here into this corner. So he's got a lot of walkers making their way towards him. We're going to start out by trying to reduce the threat. Alright, and Rick is going to drop the threat by 2. So we bring the threat back down to 7. And for his second action, Rick is going to sneak 4 inches along the building over to here. Alright, that's all our survivor actions for this turn. Let's go ahead and go to our next event card, which is Mega Herd. So, a herd of walkers enters play. The player with initiative places the first walker using the normal rules. Players alternate placing all remaining walkers on the same edge within 6 inches of the first, where they're going to move them towards someone within 10 inches, and we are at low threat, so we're going to bring on 3 walkers. Alright, so Rick has initiative, so he gets to bring on the first walker, and then we're going to alternate and bring on 2 more walkers after that, and move it at a point 10 inches, which Dexter's team is going to choose. So obviously in this case, we're going to choose to remove all those walkers towards Rick. So we're going to put the first one as far away as we can, which is going to be down here right next to Ronnie. So there will be the first walker, and then we'll put the other 2 within 6 inches of him. So we bring on 2 more walkers, and now we're going to move all of them right towards Rick. And that's where they're going to wind up moving to. Alright, and so of course we forgot again, before we did the event card, we should have done kill zones. It's only going to affect Rick, so we're going to move this 1 walker into contact with him. And now we're going to up the threat by 1 to 8, and go ahead and start the melee phase. And we'll start out with Rick against 1 walker. Alright, so Rick against 1 walker, we've done it a couple times. 2 white against 1 purple. Alright, and Rick is struggling to put away any of these walkers, so he's just going to knock that guy back an inch and prone. Alright, now we'll come around here to this one, and we're going to have Tyrese against Andrew. And in combat, Tyrese is going to have 3 white against Andrew, defending with 2 red. So we wind up with 5 successes for Tyrese and 1 for Andrew. Tyrese also rolled a headshot, which gives him an extra wound. So we're going to wind up doing 5 wounds in total. But remember, Andrew has that interceptor body armor, and he gets to roll a white die to try and get rid of some of them. So we'll see what happens here. Okay, so Andrew is able to absorb 2 wounds with that body armor. However, that still means that Tyrese got 3 wounds through, which unfortunately is enough to get rid of Andrew. So we now have Lori and Carl dead on Rick's team, and Dexter and Andrew have both died from Dexter's team. So the game is getting really, really close now. We're going to go ahead and roll for the 1 prone walker that Rick knocked down. Alright, so in turn 5, we have up the threat by 1, so we are now at 9, top of medium threat. And remember, we can only attack survivors now if there are no walkers within 8 inches of our character. So here we're going to start with Axel because Dexter's team has initiative. So what we're going to do is put him in front of Patricia, and he's going to sneak around to the front of the prison steps here. And we're going to leave him right there. So over here with Rick, the first thing Rick is going to want to do is drop the threat back down into low. That way his team can get down here and attack the prisoners. So Rick will drop the threat down to 7 again. And for his second action, Rick is just going to creep an inch or so down a little bit further along the building here. Alright, so with Rick reducing the threat back down to low, that means that our survivors are free to engage each other once again. So Tyrese is going to storm down the steps here and try and get a hold of Axel. Alright, what's going to bring us over here to Patricia, and she's going to, at this point, not shoot into the melee in front of her, but she's going to make a 4-inch sneak action to get a clear line of sight at Rick. And that M4 carbine that she has a 20-inch range, which is going to be plenty to get a good shot at Rick. So she slides right down here, which allows her to look right past the corner of the guardhouse right there, back at Rick. So we're going to go ahead and take a couple shots at him. So Patricia shooting first shot, 2 white dice. And Rick has a single white as his defense. So just as a counter there, we've got 1 wound going through after the first shot, and this will be Patricia's second shot. And Patricia also has a Cuban cigar special item, which is a one-time use. We can discard this to reroll any 1 die from our ranged attack roll. So we're going to choose to reroll that blank. So Patricia gets 3 successes on her second shot, and now for Rick's defense. Alright, so after Patricia's second shot, she's able to inflict a total of 3 wounds through to Rick, which is enough to take him out of the game. So we've replaced Rick with a prone walker, and at this point in the game, next kill is going to win. And the shot from Patricia's gun is going to create noise, so we're going to go ahead and move the closest walker. So we're going to have that guy there, slide up along the fence line, and try to get around to her. Alright, so over here to Rick's team, we're going to try to do something absolutely crazy. We're going to take Andrea and get her to try and hop over the counter, run down the steps, past Tyrese, and get outside of the prison so she can take a shot at Patricia and potentially end the game here. First thing we have to do is take a climb test. So this is either going to be an epic fail or an awesome point in the game. If we roll the badge, she makes it over the counter. If we roll a blank, she's going to stumble and fall right back down where she is. Alright, so Andrea passes the climb test. We're now going to have her go up and over the counter, down the steps, and right outside of the prison entrance here. And she ends her movement right here on the other side of Axel with Patricia dead in her sights. She's now going to use her second action to go ahead and take a shot at Patricia. Alright, so Andrea, blue and 2 red as her shooting. And in defense, Patricia has 1 red. Alright, so after a spectacular move across the counter, down the steps, Andrea manages to cause 5 wounds with a headshot to Patricia, who blanks her defense roll. That's more than enough to take her out of the game, and Rick's team without Rick on the board, comes back from a very rough start and is able to win this game. All right, so this was a really, really fun game. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. If you haven't downloaded the single player rules yet for All Out War, make sure you go over and get a hold of them. It makes the game go by so much faster when you don't have to try and think through 2 complete teams. It plays super aggressive. The second player, that AI, is going to come at you really, really fast. So they're going to go after your objectives. They're going to try and get in your face. They're going to pick you off if you just sit out in the open from across the board, which you can learn really fast. But Andrea, MVP of this game as well. If you didn't watch the 5th battle report from this, I'll leave a link up there. Go back and watch that. She was the hero from that game as well. But I hope you guys like this. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and look for the next battle report. Thanks, guys.